Yep, yeah, he's pretty good. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, I'm Jammer, and today, you guys really wanted me to talk about Inkling. It was pretty obvious, obviously. It's the only other newcomer that was playable at the E3 demo. So of course, that's going to be the next character I'm going to talk about this little series of the characters I've played. We're going to go over its moveset, we're going over its specials, smash attacks, Inkling Mechanics. If you haven't already, definitely go check out the video I did on Ridley. I did that just the other day, and I talked about, the same kind of stuff, my impressions on the character. And to kind of organize this video, first we're going to start off talking about his general gimmick, the ink mechanic. Then we'll go into his special moves. Afterwards, we'll talk about his smash attacks. And from there, we'll go on general thoughts on the character and other things to note. Inkling, anyways, wasn't my favorite right off the bat because it just took a little bit of time to kind of get used to how the character played. Because if you don't really pay attention to it, the ink mechanic really drastically changes how the gameplay is played. If you're not paying attention to it and you just run out of ink and you're just trying to still fight, you'll drastically be less effective in all of your moves. So basically, when your ink tank is full, your moves are more effective, you do more damage with the ink, as well as you have more options. It's kind of like, the original Splatoon games, where if you have the full ink tank, you have a lot of options available to you. You could do your sub-weapon, you could charge forward and try to spray down an opponent, but once you're on a low ink tank, it's kind of more of a retreat mode until you can get some ink back up. So in Smash, once you're out of ink, you won't be able to perform certain moves, like Splat Bomb, for example, or the ones you can perform, like still smash attacks. They'll be very weak, have little to no knockback, and they'll be very less effective. In order to get more ink, all you have to do is hold the shield button and then click B to recover ink, essentially clicking the special button while you're in shield. And that way it kind of feels a little natural to Splatoon players because, you're holding the trigger button that would be normally what you would be using to swim in ink. However, in this case, you don't actually need to lay ink on the ground to actually recover ink. As you probably have seen through gameplay, you can put ink on the stage, and you don't need to use that to recover ink. And speaking of which, let's talk about the Inkling's special moves. First off being the Neutral B Splatter Shot. Essentially, it covers an opponent with ink with nominal damage, kind of giving them a little bit of a pushback. Attacking the player covered in ink does exponentially more damage. And that's kind of the basis of this character's entire moveset, is the moves you use will cover your opponent in ink, and the more that they are covered in your ink, the more damage you're going to do to them and more knockback, making you a very extremely powerful fighter. However, if you don't take advantage of this mechanic and you're not spraying ink on the player and they're not getting covered in it, Inkling really does not pack much of a punch. It makes him a very weak fighter. And it's because you're not taking advantage of the character's main gimmick, So it's important to play to the character's strength and use this mechanic often. Because Neutral B is an effective way to get them covered in ink quickly, but also many other moves do cover them in ink as well, but not as much as this move anyways. This is the move, if you want to cover them in ink, this is the move you want to use. So their side B is the roller, and essentially what you do is you roll across the stage and it'll actually ground opponents, leaving them open to be hit, kind of like a pitfall item or villager's shovel. And you can kind of just go back and forth like Wario's bike actually and just roll people over. However, you can be attacked out of it, so it's not as safe. It was so much fun going down Moray Towers because it's got those slopes and whatnot, and you can literally go back and forth across the stage, going down the ramps and just covering the whole stage with your ink, which is so fun. I'm sure this can be used to combo out if you can get your opponent grounded and you can kind of turn around quickly, cancel, maybe use a smash attack or something. But for my playtime anyways, people would mash out too quickly before I could do anything with it, so it didn't seem the most effective move from what I played. An interesting thing to note is the enemies actually move slower in the ink laid on the stage. That is the main mechanic behind the ink being left on the stages. And you can kind of use this to effectively space out your opponent so then you can kind of recover some ink as they try to slowly walk towards you, or kind of force them to get up in the air to jump up above you and then, use that to your advantage from there. So their up B is the squid jump, and it's basically straight out of Splatoon. During your airtime, it does no damage or anything, but it does a tiny little bit of damage on release and on landing, which is kind of nice. So you're not completely vulnerable as soon as you land. As you visually see the ink splash out, that's the hitbox of the move. So an opponent's kind of waiting for you, trying to take you out as you land on the stage. They're going to have to hit you before you hit the ground or a little bit after. But if they try to rush you as soon as you land, the ink will kind of push them away, do a little bit of damage, giving you some time to at least recover and get ready for their next attack. Finally, the Inkling's down B is the Splat Bomb. So if you tap it, it will lob in front of you and kind of not go very far, but the longer you hold it, the farther it will be thrown horizontally. And obviously the range in between how long you hold it will depend on how long it actually is thrown. It's a pretty good move actually, and if it connects with the opponent, obviously explodes and sends them flying pretty far. This move, like many we previously mentioned, does cover them in ink, so that can be used to help you combo them from there. I have to say, I love the fact that how unique and diverse the Inkling's moveset is. It's a lot of what people expected it would be, and I'm glad they went the route of showing off different weapons rather than keeping the Inkling restricted to the splatter shot, you know, because Splatoon is so much more than just one weapon. It's a variety of weapons, and there's a giant collection of weapons that people love to choose from, and that's also represented in the smash attacks. Their forward smash is the Ink Brush, which I felt was pretty short range and had a little slow of a startup. I don't know, it just wasn't very satisfying, and it felt like I kept missing because it was just opponents were a lot farther out than the reach of that attack anyways. It also felt pretty weak too, because if you try to use it when they're not covered in ink, they're really not going to go that far. So like many other moves, especially their smash attacks are very tinged on the fact that your opponent's covered in ink. So for their down smash is the slosher. It's a little quicker than the forward one, and it's good for hitting both sides, you know, where you slosh back and forth. Great to see representation of the best weapon in Splatoon, Humwa. Due to the projectile nature of the Inkling, it just seems like they designed the smash attacks to be shorter range, so you have to get closer to your opponent to actually take them out. And then finally, the up smash is the blaster. First, it melees the opponent from the ground in front of you up, and then blasts them with the blaster. The blasting explosion itself is rather small, so it's not the easiest for catching falling opponents, and because it has to do that initial attack first, it's not super fast either. It's not like you could throw it really quickly like you could Mario Smash Attack. If used effectively, obviously smash attacks are great for kill moves. It was very much tinged on the fact of what your ink levels were, and if you ran out, you're really not going to be doing any damage against characters. And like I said, all these seem very short ranged. You basically have to get up really close and in your face of your opponent, and with their startup lag, it's not like you can just shield and try to use a attack right off the bat. But I think it's a great way to balance the character, because as it stands, it's already so ranged as it is with all the various projectiles and ink shots. So it kind of helps that their kill moves you have to get up close and personal and try to take somebody out. Now for some other stuff before we wrap it up. A great touch that I love is if the Inkling runs across the stage, they're actually quote-unquote swimming in ink, which is super fast, which is amazing. This is one of the highlights of this character, is you can get across the stage really quickly, having a very fast run speed. But it's also great to call back to, you know, how the Inklings travel fast in the games, because Inklings, as we all know, do not run fast. They walk actually very slow. In order to move quickly, they spray ink and then they go into squid form. And even if there's no ink on the actual stage, they'll still like pretend and they'll still swim through the invisible ink that's already there. The same is true for their roll dodges and such, where they kind of go into squid form and roll away from the opponent. And then some of their taunts actually call back to some in the game, like the booyah, the woomy, or whatever. Overall, like I said, Inkling is a very technical fighter in the way that you really have to pay attention to your ink mechanic. Because if you do forget about it, you kind of just go gun-ho and kind of ignore it, you're going to be hindered and not as effective. An Inkling without ink is super weak because all your moves, super low damage, super low knockback, and you're really not an effective fighter anymore. And so that's the main gimmick of this character, is really balancing that ink, making sure you have enough at all times to perform the moves that you need to do, and using it to your advantage to spray the opponent and then cause more damage on their behalf. Keep your opponent with as much ink on them as possible so that you can continue to do the maximum amount of damage as well as knockback, while as well make sure to maintain your tank status so you can still have options and a variety of moves to choose from. It'll take you a little getting used to Inkling. He wasn't as pick up and play as Ridley, for example. It took a little bit of getting used to, and I'm still kind of figuring him out as well. Once the full game comes out, obviously I'm going to need to take a little closer look at the character and play him a little bit more and figure out what moves I like and stuff like that, because I didn't play him as much because, like I said, it was a lot harder to just pick up and play, especially in a demo format where if you're trying to figure out a character, you're going to be killed instantly by somebody coming in with their Mario main and just destroy you, you know. So what other characters do you want to see me talked about? We've talked about now the 2 newcomers that were in the playable demo, but there were some other returning veterans that weren't in Smash for you, as well as some other characters that were in the demo that were changed drastically from the previous game. Definitely let me know that in the comments. Be sure to give this video a big awesome like, and if you haven't already, definitely subscribe for tons more on Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and other Nintendo Switch content. Thanks again, guys, so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!